There's nobody that I want to murder other than you right now.
Look, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable about saying anything because none of it's going to make any sense.
Whatever.
Iconic.
Okay, hi everyone, this is the Recreate Reality podcast with Michael and Teresa. Today, we are talking the Traitors US Season 3, Episode 6. For anyone who hasn't watched the show, there are massive spoilers ahead. In today's episode, the self-proclaimed greatest reality competition player of all time versus Michael's proclaimed greatest reality player of all time. It's Wes versus Boston Rob. And the greatest traitor confrontation we've ever had, Carolyn and Danielle murder each other at the round table. Lastly, Derrick turns allies into enemies. What kind of stupid man logic is that? Okay, so if you've missed the episodes, you can catch all the action on your local streaming services. The Traitors US Season 3, Episode 6, breakdown coming up.
Welcome back, guys. So we're still in Singapore, as you can see, so we haven't got all the creature comforts of home, but we're going to try and make do. So thank you for joining us. What an ep. This was so much drama. Where do we start? I mean, this episode had so much iconic stuff. I think we should start with Wes, right?
Yeah, and like his exit. I think that was probably the main thing that kind of like finished up the episode for me, and how dramatic. Maybe I think almost a little bit cringy.
It was like one of the harshest exits you could imagine. Like if Bob was the most graceful traitor exit, this was the most traitorous, faithful exit I've ever seen. Like for a faithful, he went out as a villain. You know, I think everybody was almost not even sad to see him go with his words.
I think so.
This was as ungraceful as and you know, tough to see.
Yeah, I think it just maybe came off as a little bit of like a sore loser.
For sure.
You know, just like what he did. We won't touch on it too much because we're going to come back to it towards the end.
Yeah.
But we just wanted to say, I think like it was huge. I think for me, I was like just kind of like my face was just cringing the whole time I was watching the exit, and I was like, oh, you know, not like, great, you know.
His whole I'm one of the greatest reality players of all time. Like, what? That is the equivalent of a celebrity saying, "Don't you know who I am?" You know, like if you have to say it, you're not it.
Yeah.
You know, you ain't. You know, you're not the one. If you have to say you're the one, you know what I'm saying? Like. Self-aggrandizing is never a good move, Wes, and he came off looking really bad after this.
I feel like he's going to get like really trolled on social media as well. Yeah.
The whole I don't care about any of you. You're all pawns on a chessboard. Oh, by the way, I'm a faithful. Like, I don't think any of them even felt bad about voting him out. Like every other episode, you know, once you get rid of a faithful, you're like, oh no, we killed one of our own. This was almost relief. Like, meh. He upset all the women.
I know. I think it felt more like, okay, well, it doesn't matter if he's not a traitor. We're just letting go of a bad faithful, which is okay.
Exactly. So we're going to roll back and then we'll come back to Wes at the end, I guess. So
I think so. So let's do a quick summary of the previous episode, which is episode 5. So we've seen Danielle had like a mini breakdown in the chapel when she tried to, you know, like save a housewife, and you know, ended up, you know, coming off a little bit traitorous because like Dolores is like, oh, aren't you afraid of being murdered? We've had the kind of like mini showdown in the Traitors Tower between Danielle and Carolyn. Yeah.
So we pick up on that.
So now we're back in the Traitors Tower, and I guess, there's kind of like this big confrontation between Danielle and Carolyn. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Danielle never wanted to work with Carolyn for some reason. Her main objective was to get rid of Rob. And instead of going at Rob with Carolyn, she's done this in a roundabout way of getting rid of Carolyn, which has given her 2 enemies in the turret instead of 1. And instead of doing it in a subtle way, and look, I think Carolyn is a tough kill no matter what, as a traitor. You know, like... she is so under the radar right now. She's so underestimated that for Danielle to openly go at her and tell people, I think Carolyn's a traitor. No one believes her, for one. And Carolyn has just...
She's got allies. She actually has people coming up to her, hey, I think, you know, Danielle's saying your name. So I think people actually maybe like Caroline more than Danielle.
She's very popular.
Yeah.
She's underestimated. And I know she's the quirky girl at high school. She's a little bit of that you know, the odd one out sometimes. She doesn't fit in, but she's beloved, and that's why people like her. Because and now that she's found out that Danielle's against her, it's just open warfare. And Danielle, to her credit, says, look, leave it with me. I'm going to try and make good today. You know, I'm sorry, I did go at you, blah, 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 blah. But I think the damage has been done because she's already sown these seeds with everyone. And it takes a couple of days. And we've seen this episode, everyone coming up to Carolyn and saying, Danielle's been saying your name.
Yeah. Well, I think Danielle should have actually maybe warned her. Okay, and maybe said, okay, if she had actually been more open, because she just said, I'll try and fix this. But she didn't actually say what she did. But because I think if she had kind of like preempt Caroline, okay, I might have mentioned your name to a couple of people, you know, and then at least Caroline wasn't caught unawares. But it seems like Caroline was just like really caught by, like in shock, you know, like the next day. So I felt like, you know, if you say you're going to fix this, you have to really come clean, you know, you can't let them just like, you know, be surprised the next day.
Exactly.
You know?
I don't think Carolyn realised the extent of the treachery that was going on and the seeds that Danielle had planted. And the irony is that the paranoia started because of Boston Rob going for Bob. And now Rob is in between these two women fighting each other and becoming the voice of reason and being the one that's like, come on ladies, we need to work together.
Yeah.
When he's ironically the one they're both trying to kill because they don't trust him.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just chaotic. This is the most chaotic turret I've ever seen on any edition of the show.
So we've never actually seen like one where like all the traitors are kind of like gunning for each other, and it's actually very exciting.
Yeah.
I have to say, like these I wasn't sure about the US show, having watched the UK show, but I have to say, like, they're really bringing the drama on a lot this season.
They are. They're not holding back. They're bringing the drama. They're bringing the interest. There hasn't been a boring episode yet. There's been 6 episodes, and already we've seen more confrontation, more drama than perhaps any other season to date. So kudos to the cast. It's better than last season's US cast, I think, where you had, you know, Marcus Jordan and
Lassa Pippen.
Yeah, Lassa Pippen. All these strange combinations that just didn't quite create the drama and the intrigue. This is actually very exciting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they decide to make a kill finally, and Carolyn, funnily enough, gets her fingerprints all over the contract. Such a Carolyn thing to do. It's lucky that they kill them and, you know, they don't actually do fingerprint analysis, because she would get her thumbprints all over the murder weapon. She's so funny.
I know. Okay, so now we come to breakfast table. So as usual, breakfast table, we like to start off with like a best dress. What's your best dress?
Well, the best dress is the one that got killed. But other than him, Ciara and Trishelle always kill it at these tables. I think the thing that they do is they dress... Listen to me as if I'm kind of some fashionable... Oh, look, this is your department. Why am I talking? Who's the best dressed, hon?
Oh, well, as you said, I think, it's a shame that Bob Harper got killed. I think, even his being murdered outfit was great. Like, he was dressed in like a tartan kilt.
Yeah.
You know, very, very Scottish. I like that very much.
Very iconic. Very nice.
Do you think that's something that you would ever wear?
I could never pull it off like Bob Harper, but like he looked cool. Like, you know, I'm not a kilt person, but he looked cool. But I think Ciara and Trishelle always seem to dress classy and they're age appropriate.
Yeah, so true. I think Ciara, she's wearing this like long knit white dress off the shoulder. It's very form fitting. I think it suits her, and it's it's gorgeous against her complexion. Trishelle is always dressed. I think she's had like this pink. Long trench, not pink, but it's like a mauve.
Oh, sorry.
Mauve like trench coat.
Stupid bad logic.
Yeah. So she always looks good.
Yeah, she does. And of course, Bob Harper slaying it, but sadly, Bob Harper is the one to die.
Yeah. So I think he's one of the more popular players on this show. I think not just with like the audience, but I think among the mansion as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I think, what do you think of that as a kill?
I was surprised. Because I think Danielle suggested Wes. I would have gone with Wes. I thought Wes was the safer kill. I think Wes is the dangerous opponent at the round table. For me, I would kill the people who are dangerous at the round table. But then Boston Rob said that would reflect back on him, that danger. And Derrick. So, and he wants to keep as many late arrival people as possible.
Yeah.
So the suspicion's on him. What do you think? But you said that, you said the opposite, that it was a good kill.
I did. So I actually thought that was a good kill because I feel like for Boston Rob, I think he likes to kill his enemies in plain sight, not behind the scenes. I feel like, say, maybe with a lot of traitors, they might want to take out like stronger players, and murder them rather than go directly against them at the round table. Yeah. But Boston Rob, he doesn't have like this normal fear that us normal people have. Yeah. He would just be like, no, you are a target, I'm gonna take you out at the round table.
Yeah.
And maybe in a way that kind of like also solidifies his, I guess, his presence as a faithful as well. Right. Because why wouldn't he kill Wes? Yeah. Murder him.
Right.
If he could.
Right. Yeah. Good call. Good point. I was thinking the opposite, that like if you don't murder Wes overnight, you have to battle him at the round table.
Well, yeah, and that's not something he's afraid of. But that's not he's
afraid of. That's something I would be afraid of.
Yeah, that's something just us mere mortals would be afraid of.
Because that's a tough move. You have to debate someone who's openly gunning for you.
Yeah.
I would have thought the move would have been kill Wes at night, and then you come in the morning, you say, oh my gosh, Wes is gone. Someone's definitely trying to pin it on me. The way Sam in Australian season 2 would have, he would always kill the obvious target, and in order to avoid it, would say, that's obvious that I killed him. He'd use that double logic, which worked for a couple of moves, but he kept on doing it and it became obvious. But Boston Rob, as you say, isn't afraid to kill in plain sight. I can't put it any better than that. Yeah. Okay. So Bob Harper, his game. Where did he go wrong? Do you think it was just simply he spoke too openly, too freely at the round table, mentioning Rob's name? That was simply his mistake, I feel.
I don't actually think it was... I don't think he actually did anything wrong, to be honest. I think he was just being him. Yeah. I think he had a great presence. I think everyone loved him, both on screen and off screen. I think it was just... He was just probably just so popular, like Soul from Survivor, that he just had to go. Maybe he did make a mistake by bringing up Boston Rob, but I don't think you can actually go into the house and not raise any suspicions, because that would just put suspicion on you.
Yeah, it's a tough game to play as a faithful. It really is. It's almost like the best way to play as a faithful is to survive by not killing the traitors and to try and ally with them, side up with them, and have a wink alliance where you cover them, they cover you, and then at the last minute you slay them. I think Jeremy had that game plan, but he just didn't go around executing it because he didn't realize he went at Danielle. And, but I think he had that sort of plan from the start, but he didn't go out executing it so well. But maybe that's the strat for future players. I don't know.
And I feel like sometimes, we think of, players being murdered, being betrayed, being banished and stuff, it's a bad thing. But the fact is only, out of 25 people, only 2 people can maybe win the game. Most people will actually end up being eliminated. Yeah. And that's okay. That's just a part of life. It doesn't actually necessarily mean maybe they did something wrong.
Go out with style. Right?
Yeah, it's better to just go out with style. Most people actually end up getting gone anyway.
True, getting got. Tom does his crazy thing once again. This guy's so funny. Every episode, he has a moment where he just does something crazy, offensive, or disturbing, or just a little bit uncomfortable around women. He is so funny. I think he deserves a show unto himself, Tom. This episode, he pulls aside Brittany and he says, it's Dolores. Brittany says, it's not Dolores. And he goes, no, you can't say that. No, stop. Literally pointing at her and looming over her. I don't think he realizes the things that he's doing sometimes, the presence that he can sometimes convey as a guy. It makes people uncomfortable. But then again, I don't think the women are necessarily afraid of him because he's a bit of a funny dude. But yeah, nevertheless, another moment by Tom.
Yeah, I think he's actually, at first I think he was a bit strange, but he's actually quite endearing. I think I can see, why he's just on all these reality TV.
He's a bit of a bumbling Clouseau type character, you know, just a bumbling detective. He might get it through, you know, at the end. So Rob is also starting to stir.
I think it's starting
Wes.
to like plant seeds on Wes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that was always his strategy. It's like, okay, let's not murder. Like, let me just let me just banish him in plain sight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me prove Let me prove myself to be the alpha of the house.
He knows his influence. You know what I mean? He knows the goodwill that he has, and so he's just starting to simply suggest to people, you know, Wes is a little bit sus. You know what he did with Nikki. You know, he really was going hard at Nikki, and Nikki was a faithful. Why would he do that? He's planting these seeds, well aware that Derrick and Wes are in the other room saying the same stuff at him.
Yeah.
Saying, look, we're starting to get the numbers, we're starting to build allies, and this is the theme of the episode, right? These two camps trying to build numbers to take each other out. It's almost like Survivor, where it's about building alliances instead of actually having real proof or strategy.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I found that interesting. Neither side was using evidence as much as relationships. And so Derrick especially was going around saying, I need your number tonight, vote with me. Hey, we're Big Brother boys, vote with me. Hey, remember that time I backed you up?
Well, do you think like maybe because I noticed they do that, but then they save all the evidence for the round table.
Okay.
So maybe it's almost like a strategy of, okay, not wanting to like give out their cards, to show their cards early so that the opposition cannot mount a defense against them. True.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's exactly what they were trying to do. I just think that the best way to get someone it's like conception, to do something is to plant an idea and let them believe that it's their idea. Do you know what I mean? Just plant suspicion in their own mind. Like, hey, did you notice how Rob was doing that thing the other day where he said 100%, if I don't go, then you go. Do you know what I mean? How could someone know that? And then just leave it for the person to germinate and marinate that idea on their own. Rather than pushing an agenda that is like, I'm going to go hard at Rob tonight, I need your vote. That aggression, as we see in this episode, doesn't work out well for them.
Yeah, I think so. And we saw at the round table, I think like maybe quite a few of the women were getting a little bit uncomfortable with Wes.
Yeah.
So speaking of Wes, the one thing that I actually always think about when I see him on screen is like, okay, why is his beard so red, but the rest of his like his hair is kind of like a brownish red. But then his beard just looks very red.
Ginger. He's a ginger.
Like, ginger I know, but there's just a very stark color contrast. So I'm like, is he coloring it? I don't know if it's something that any of you guys have thought. Like for me, it's just because there's such a stark color difference between his beard and his head. So I'm like, okay, does he dye his beard or like, what's the go there? Why is it so red? So if anyone can let us know, tell me.
Yeah, but we see Wes not really building up trust this episode, and it may be due to what you're saying. Maybe gingers are less trustworthy. That is a theory, that gingers have more fun but are also less trustworthy than other people.
Okay.
Weird, right? But and Wes, he says, I'll pile on if it goes that way, which is just a bit of a limp.
Yeah,
move,
I did feel like
that.
when Derrick presented his case to him, because he kind of like, I think Wes did kind of like start that with Tom and Ivor, and he was saying, how do you know for sure if this is a traitor, 100% a traitor?
Yep.
And he kind of like led that on, but then it seems like in this episode he just let Derrick take a charge.
Exactly.
And it's just like, okay, I'll see how this goes on round table, and I might pile on if I have to. Yeah. I feel like he kind of has his foot like one step, 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the door. Yeah. And whereas with like say when Boston Rob wanted to go for Bob the drag queen, he had Dylan's like they both of them went all out. But then in this case I felt like it was mainly Derrick's charge. Exactly. And perhaps maybe if Wes had actually been more enthusiastic about it, and actually started to gather the troops like Derrick had, I felt like it might have been successful.
I agree because the fact that he didn't attack with conviction, but he was the one that planted this idea in the very first case, doomed him, because it made it look like he was architecturally invested, like he's planting these seeds, but not committing to his own idea. You know, so which contradicts what I said before about the whole Inception thing about planting these ideas. I guess that's the social game of it. You have to be so deft, so slick that you have to cover your tracks if you're going to play it that way. But if you're going to attack someone like Boston Rob, you got to go all out at him, I think, because they would have had the numbers. They would have had Danielle, I believe, if they approached Danielle. They would have had Carolyn if they'd approached Carolyn. But these two guys, I think they were working only with the guys, for one. They're kind of bro-ish, do you know what I mean? And with the girls, they seem to be very aggressive. Like, as we will talk about, that turned off all the women against them. Almost all the women.
Yeah.
And that doomed them.
Well, I do know that for West, he did say that he didn't want his entire game to be hinged on whether, like, you know, he got out Boston Rob.
Yeah.
So I think...
But you have to commit at some stage.
You do have to commit.
You know what I mean?
I think like, and
I
think
where he's coming
especially
from.
with maybe like we've heard some of the housewives says, you know, like we'll wait to see what comes up at round table if someone is actually confident.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the men will take charge and we'll go from there. Like,
we even
I
hear
feel
them
like,
say, like, let's hear what Boston Rob says when we get to the table.
You know?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to stop.
Yeah, so I think like sometimes people are just waiting for a leader to step up.
Yes.
And if none step up, well, they're just going to follow the obvious one, even if he might turn out to be a traitor.
So who are the leaders in the house? I think it's clearly Boston Rob. Now that Boston Rob has a thing of killing all the male leaders. Okay, he does this with on Survivor with killing all the other dudes, and we see it here with Bob the Drag Queen, Bob Harper, Russell Hantz on Survivor. Sorry, was the name I was thinking of other players, strong male characters he likes to get rid of. He's slowly chipping away, and now he's gotten rid of Wes, right? And that leaves him to really push the charge as this alpha. He likes this position. Who are the other leaders in the house, do you think? Dolores, do you think?
No, off the top of my head, I can't think of any. I
Really?
don't think that there's any evidently leader. I think Derrick tries to be.
Yeah.
But in this case,
No,
he kind of
it's not.
like fell short a little bit. I don't think he actually has the support that
How about
he
Dolores?
needs.
You don't think Dolores is a leader amongst the women?
How is she a leader?
I just think I don't know. I think she speaks so well. She has maybe some influence over the housewives, but maybe Robin was the leader, I guess. And now that she's gone, it's kind of left.
Yeah, I mean, I see Dolores as being outspoken and opinionated, but I don't think she kind of like leads the charge, which is what I imagine a leader to be.
Yeah.
So besides Boston Rob, at this point in time, I don't see any.
Okay, cool. The next thing we were going to talk about was Carolyn and Brittany. So still the crumbs, the repercussions of Danielle's treachery are still being felt. So even though she said, I'm going to stop firing at you, the things that she had done the day before are still resonating. So she had gone to Brittany and said, Carolyn's gunning for you. Carolyn had not been gunning for Brittany. She simply mentioned Brittany as a name to be murdered at the turret, which was a good piece of editing because they included that in the turret when the editors included that, because this pays off now. And Brittany comes up to Carolyn and says, you know, Danielle said your name has been bandied, and Carolyn almost spits out her food, which is a natural reaction, and says, no girl, I swear on anything in my life, I never said your name. And Brittany's a bit hesitant to give up Danielle's name, but we see the messiness that's unfolding this episode between Danielle and Brittany, and this storyline starting to unfold. Yeah, what do you think about this?
I guess. I mean, I think, like you said, it's like with Danielle, like all the seeds that she's planted before, you know, is starting to take root now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and she's, you know, she should have preempt.
She
should have preempt Carolyn.
Yeah, she should have. She should have come out and said, look, I said a lot of crap the other day. You're going to hear a lot of bad stuff from everybody else today. I'm really super sorry about it.
Yeah.
I was gunning for you. I thought you were gunning for me because you didn't tell me about the Jeremy thing. I was paranoid. Please forgive me. Let's work together. You're going to hear some bad stuff about me today. Yeah. Let's use it to our advantage and get out Rob.
Yeah.
You know, and say that Rob was the one that was planting it or something like that. Let's try and twist this and work together. But unfortunately, Danielle just didn't do quite enough homework, I think, and did a bit too much, behind the scenes planting, and now it's starting to come to fruition. Next thing we get to is the challenge, I guess. What do we think of this?
The challenge, I think, that was an interesting thing. So we've actually already seen this on the UK one. And I did notice that on the US one, everyone seems to be going for a shield first over money. Yeah. Whereas it was kind of like the opposite on the UK.
In UK versions and other seasons, we've seen people that go for shields are always suspected as being traitors, but that's not necessarily traitorous behaviour. If anything, it's very faithful behaviour to want to preserve yourself.
Yeah, especially if you are planning to make a statement at the round table, especially if you're planning to accuse someone at the round table.
I think on other formats of the show, people are generally expected to be a little bit more selfless, and if they act selfishly, traitor or faithful, they get banished for it.
Yeah.
On this season, everyone is acting in their best self-interest, so no one is blinking an eyelid at it. I found the questions to this challenge a little bit inane and pointless. They asked things like how many people were on the pontoons, how many people are over 6 foot. Like, this is irrelevant. You know what I mean? I get that they needed to get numbers as answers for the codes, but there's no reason why they couldn't have had words. You know what I mean? And you have to get the right word, and it unlocks it. You know what I mean? You just change the format. And you have, instead of questions that are inane, questions that prompt a little bit of thinking or cause controversy, right?
Yeah. Like, who do you think is a traitor in the house, or who is a bad faithful, or
who is the least trustworthy?
Yeah, who is the sneakiest?
Who's the sneakiest?
Yeah, we always like this. I always find I like these kind of questions because it's a good way to get an idea of what people think. Because sometimes I feel like as an audience, we can kind of like see a different side to how people behave,
and it's also how the editors project it, right? But the house, you don't know how things truly are.
It'll be interesting, like, to get an idea of, like, what everyone else thinks of everyone else.
Exactly. And I always think those kind of challenges where they ask these kind of questions really prompt drama and cause controversy, and actually get people to really socialize and work differently. We've seen it in other UK versions where, people are suspected and then suddenly they realise, I'm the most trustworthy, or I'm the least faithful, and so on. So do better, guys. The challenges need to be a little bit more interesting and controversial, especially when you have such big personalities. Make them really stir at each other, I think. Yeah,
I think so too.
So who got the shield? It was Dylan, who turns out to be a scissors, rock, paper champion. Who would have known? This guy's so becoming more and more interesting as the day goes on. Trishelle and Carolyn. And so that's pretty much it for the challenge. Was there anything else that we were going to talk about for the challenge?
No. Well, was there like okay? Did anyone think that the explosion looked fake?
It was fake. That was like the end of Die Hard. It was such bad CG. Because obviously what they had done is rigged the explosion to just knock over the massive statue.
Yeah.
And then in editorial, they added some bad After Effects. I'm a former editor myself, and this is a really cheap After Effects package that you can buy for about $15 online. They used that package, and it looks terrible. If there was an explosion, you would see debris. And after they play these effects, you can just see everything just standing there perfectly. Yeah. And besides, this is a beautiful country estate. Who wants to see explosions on this country estate other than Americans? It's such an American thing to do, to just blow everything
up. Like it's Die Hard.
Oh my gosh. Unnecessary, guys. Just something falling over is enough.
Yeah.
We don't need to blow everything up, America. We see Carolyn and Gabby also stirring some stuff. Talking some controversy.
Yeah, well, I think it was just more so with Gabby.
And again, it's a Danielle thing,
Yeah, I think it's just more so of a Danielle thing. I think Caroline was just asking around. I mean, we see that Gabby, she wants to be a friend to everyone.
Yeah.
And she's happy to tell Caroline that it was Danielle. So, yeah, not probably the best case scenario for Danielle.
Yeah, and we can see how popular Carolyn is here, which Danielle underestimated. Like, everybody that she had spoken to, Danielle has gone to Carolyn and told her, you know, she is so underestimated and liked and so charismatic that none of the moves that Danielle has tried to plant is really coming to fruition, which is interesting. Okay, so then they go to lunch and we see Sam picking out food and saying, oh, good, this is healthy. I don't like brownies. Dude, what is wrong with you? Who could not like brownies? And he came across as a little bit of, you know, a food deprivation kind of guy. He has no cheat days. I did a bit of homework. This was Sam Asghari before, and this is Sam Asghari now. So he's had a little bit of a makeover. He's had a bit of work done in order to become Britney Spears' hubby. What do we think? Wow,
yeah.
a lot of big change.
It's a very big change. I think. I mean, he seems like a totally different
Seems like a
species.
different human.
Yeah.
So yeah,
kind of like a Kardashian, like, you know, before and afters. Like,
so,
you know, you
yeah.
can't even tell that they're the same person.
So that's why I think he doesn't like brownies. Clearly, cutting out brownies has changed the trajectory of his life. So we can't argue with that.
Well, we love brownies, yeah. I mean, even just recently, we're in Singapore.
We
You
love
know, I've been
brownies.
teaching my nieces how to make brownies. So
And
we
God
just had
bless
brownie
them.
last night.
We did. God bless them. I could not live without brownies. Sam, give brownies a chance. They're great. What else happens? So Wes brings up Tom to Dolores.
I think we have like Derrick, you know, like probably prompting Ivor about the fact that, you know, you know, that he had Boston Rob on his mind.
It tries to get support from that.
Yeah, it tries to get support. So I think like Ivor comes across as maybe he actually wasn't quite sure about like what Derrick, who
I don't
Derrick
think
meant.
he knew what he was talking about. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Because Derrick is like, hey, remember that thing that you were thinking and that guy that we were going to go for? And I was just eating, Well, yeah, I need your help voting for that thing tonight when we go for that. The thing just came across as completely sus. Because Derrick, instead of just coming out and saying it, was just so suggestive and subliminal that I think it wasn't clear what he was trying to do, and instead he asked for blind support. And we hear later at the round table this was his entire approach all afternoon. We also, something else I want to talk about, we see Wes go up to Tom and Dolores and stir their names between them.
Yeah.
So this was like, if you're going to go at someone as big as Rob, you need every single vote that you can muster. And instead of focusing his energy on Rob, he goes to Tom and says, Dolores is coming for you. He goes to Dolores and says, Tom is going for you. He basically stirs trouble between Tom and Dolores, which dilutes his own voting power later on in the episode, because they end up going at each other, as we will talk about, you know. And instead, you need every vote you can get. You know, and we see his voting power weakened by 1 ultimately, because I think Dolores votes for Tom. I think it is. Yeah,
I think so. Like, I think, like you said, if he had just been like, you know, full force at Boston Rob with Derrick, that probably would have worked better. Yeah,
definitely. And also, Tom stands when he eats, which is strange. God bless you, Tom. Another weird thing. Even Brittany herself says, the way these guys are going about this is very aggressive. They're telling us what to do rather than, you know, asking us what to do. Yeah, we're starting to repeat ourselves, but anyway. What else do we see? I think we see Trishelle sitting with
Boston Rob. Yeah. So I think this is the power of Boston Rob, is that he has this ability to have people come up to him. Like, all these women are like, okay, you know, like, I hear that this thing, there's this, like, your name and Wes is being thrown out.
Yeah, such goodwill.
Yeah.
This is what you call charisma. Right? Like, he literally can sit back, have lunch with Danielle, and he will have Trishelle run up to him and say, do you have enough to go at Wes tonight? Not even if, are you a traitor or are you a faithful? It's, do we have enough to kill Wes? Because he's going to come at you. The question of traitorism and faithfulness isn't even brought up. It's not even, you know, questioned. Yeah. I mean, even with, like, say, Trishelle, I think, you know, she's just like, okay, if you have anything to go off with him, you know, let me know, because then I can sway my vote to, you know, to Wes. Yeah. And Trishelle sums it up. She says, I personally don't like the way Wes has spoken to me.
Yeah.
That in of itself sums it all up, right? Like Boston Rob, the way he speaks to people, especially women, they appreciate it. Whereas Wes, his approach all episode and beforehand, and Derrick, it's clunky. It's clunky. It's a bit too aggressive. And instead of dialing it down, he actually leans into this aggression, Wes, and says like, you know, this is the way I am. This is what I like to do. I'm an aggressive guy, dude. These are not the times to be an aggressive man in this house.
Yeah, I think so. And I think oftentimes with like women, like maybe that kind of aggression, maybe it works better with men who don't take things as personally. Maybe, but I feel like with women, like, you know,
especially
if
women
you
in
wanna,
this day and age.
Yeah, if you want to be like very direct and straightforward with them, like it can come across as like a little bit aggressive, even though it's not meant to be aggressive.
Patriarchal, yeah.
Yeah, and also like, you know, with like, and especially if you're not like, say, validating like, you know, our feelings and stuff, you know, firstly, and you want us to like, you know, do what you want us to do, well, that's going to be a very hard sell.
Exactly, and I think a lot of men fall into this pattern of behavior through learned behavior. You know what I mean? It's a bad habit, so socially, that men have. That they resort to aggression and anger to get their point across. We see this in society. I'm sure we've experienced it, where men think that they can scream louder or more enthusiastically or use more emphasis to get their point across rather than calm, reasoned logic, especially when speaking to the fairer sex, because thankfully, this kind of behavior is kind of being called out upon now. And I'm not saying Wes is sexist, but I'm just saying this approach, it clearly upsets the women.
I think so. I think there's just something that he's doing. I mean, as Brittany has said, you know, he's like shady as hell. Yeah. Something that he's doing that's not vibing with them, you know, and I think it's just, you know, he wants to make his point across, but he's probably is not very agreeable to taking on other people's opinions. Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of a give and take. You can't expect, you know, to just keep taking if you're not giving. Yeah.
And that's the thing I really appreciate about, I know I go off about Boston Rob too much. I'm his biggest fanboy. I can't help it. I love the dude. But the way he behaves socially, he's written books on this, for crying out loud. Do you know what I mean? It's very slick. I don't think he's in his prime. This isn't peak Boston Rob on Survivor, and he's a little bit older now. He's a little bit more laid back and a little bit chill, and he comes across a little bit aloof sometimes. I think that's a flaw in his gameplay these days, where he's a bit more godfathery and he just dictates a little bit and turns on the aggression suddenly. But still, the way he communicates overall is very subtle, gentle, and considerate, and I think that's what works to his favour, and that's something I really appreciate about his gameplay. Okay, so we get to the round table, and what a round table. So let's get all the fringe drama out of the way first. Okay,
so firstly, I think it's like Dolores versus Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she just decided to like start off the round table and to be like, okay, Tom, like I don't want you to be nervous because it's not going to make sense, you know, and that's a great like, you know, opening, because Tom is instantly like, well, I would be flustered if I was Tom, if like someone says that to me.
Instead of just waiting for Tom to attack her, she actually says, Tom, I heard you've been saying my name. Why don't you have a go and talk? And Tom is just caught swallowing his you know, his voice and just stumbling off the outset, because here is this woman just calling him out. Dolores is very outspoken, very, you know, confident. Tom doesn't necessarily have a great way with words. He's a little bit, you know, bumbling, if I might say that. It shows him as a little bit bumbling. And she just puts him on the back foot straight away and totally nullifies anything he has to say. And not only that, has a lot of the round table just giggling at him after that, I think, which is just poor Tom. Because I think he's very emphatic outside the round table, but when it comes to round table presentation, it's a totally different game.
It is.
You know, you need to be such a confident speaker, so good at debating. Yeah. You need to hold your points and hold your nerve. Yeah. I think outside the round table, Tom comes up to people and he's very confident. But at the round table, it's a different game, as I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so. So let's move on to Derrick's approach. And what do you think of Derrick?
Okay. Derrick nailed it. I think Derrick actually... Later he says, I was beating Rob in there. He's not wrong. He made 4 great points, which I wrote down. Okay, so Derrick does great. He wrote 4 points. He said Bob's vote when he left. First of all, Bob the drag queen. He pointed at Boston Rob as a vote. Number 2, Rob is too dangerous to leave around. If Rob is such a great faithful, why would the traitors keep such a faithful traitor hunter in this game? That every time he turns up at breakfast, it's suspicious because he's such a great player.
Yeah.
It's impossible for him to survive. The only way he could have survived is if he'd grabbed onto these shields or kept on, winning these challenges, or somehow was used as a goat perhaps. But that no one's buying that. Point number 3, he had Bob H killed. True. Bob H was getting close to him, detecting him, and he killed Bob H. And the final point that he makes is that he was denied access into the house, and then after that, Alan Cumming decided to make him into a traitor. The first time we see Boston Rob, he's literally wearing a cloak and a mask, and he pulls it off. And then he's not allowed into the house. And then later he re-enters that house. That whole setup dramatically implies that he's going to re-enter as a traitor. And Derrick reads it perfectly and makes those 4 points, and he's right on every single one of them.
Yeah, he is. I actually think, to be honest, he did a really good, attack on Boston Rob without it being, it was very logical.
It was very
logical.
logical.
They're indisputable facts.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, very, very emotional. It was a great debate, to be honest.
It was a great debate. He did very well. The only thing is he didn't follow up so well, and he started to use pressure a little bit on Dylan and on these other people, trying to twist their arm, whereas Rob let people do what they were going to do. And I think he lost it at the end. But then what do you think of Rob's rebuttal? Rob said... Sorry.
Yeah, so I think he said that, firstly, that Bob the drag queen, what he said, he admitted that everything he said was a lie.
Yep.
So I think that was good. The part where he was kind of talking about him and Ivor being at breakfast, one being a faithful, one being kind of could be a traitor. I think that part I didn't quite understand.
Yeah, this was very convoluted. I don't know what he was trying to get at. I think what he was trying to say is that someone here is very smart. Someone is keeping the best faithfuls around so as to have them go at each other. I didn't quite get the logic.
I didn't quite get that logic. Maybe if one of you guys...
explain to us. What were you saying, Boston?
Understood it, because we watched it twice. The first time I didn't get it. The second time I think I was like, I'm not quite sure. Okay. Maybe it's just one of those, maybe it makes sense in his head, but it just wasn't presented well.
Yeah, what he said was, if the traitors can make me a target, then they don't have to murder me. It wasn't a very clear argument. Because
I think maybe there was just that contrast, that comparison with Ivor.
Yeah.
I think if he had just probably said straight away, this is what the traitors... Why would they murder me if you guys can just banish me?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that would probably have been clearer. But to make that distinction with Ivor...
Because Ivor's gameplay is nothing like his.
Yeah.
So to put himself and align himself with Ivor as a comparison and say, look, us two are left here. Ivor is not a traitor hunter.
Yeah.
Ivor is just seen as the most faithful because he's such a gentleman and so sweet and so
very
polite.
Good at making tea.
And very good at making tea. And, he's just a gentleman of the house, the lord of the manor. But he's not an active player around the round table. So I don't see the comparison. He's not actively hunting out traitors the same way Boston Rob has. So to say that their gameplay is alike, that confused me with what Boston Rob was saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, it seemed to have protected him enough.
Yeah, probably enough. And, he was able to deflect it to Wes, which I like, because he didn't actually try and put it back on Derrick. Because oftentimes, when someone attacks you, the primarily instinct, I feel, is to actually attack that person back. So instead of attacking that person back because, you're feeling defensive, he was actually able to move it onto Wes.
Yeah, good call.
Without putting it onto... I think if he had put it onto Derrick, it might come off as like, oh my god, he's being defensive.
Yes.
Maybe he's feeling guilty.
Yes.
Maybe we should really look at, voting him. But he didn't. He deflected it.
Yeah. And he knew how to read the room because he already had sensed and he planted the seeds all afternoon and the day before on Wes with people that we need to look at Wes. And secondly, he was reading the room as to how people were feeling about Wes. He could sense that Wes maybe wasn't as popular at the moment because of just how he is, you know, because we see upon the next few moments, Wes really upsetting the room.
Yeah.
Because
I didn't realize how many of the women were actually that upset with him.
Oh my gosh. What Wes says is, first of all, people, the ladies go around and say, look, Wes, you've been looking for blind loyalty. Why do you want blind loyalty? And Wes responds, I'm an aggressive person. I'm aggressive. Aggression is good. And this is what we were talking about before, about this kind of behavior. It might fly in the past and in certain environments like sports and so on, maybe even in Gordon Ramsay's kitchen. But in this kind of reality show, especially with desperate housewives and women who have their own agency, power and, you know, self-interest and ability to project that, this isn't going to fly, man. And so you need every vote.
Yeah.
You need every vote. You need to appeal to every person.
I think so. And I think maybe with like what Gabby says, she's like, oh, you just expect us to be blindly loyal to you without actually really giving us a reason to. It feels like, you know, sometimes it can feel like, oh, you're just being told what to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And then he says, if you guys vote for me, I'm going to have my eye on you. And it takes a moment, but then all the women are just like, what? You're going to have your eye on me? And they cover their cleavage as if horrified, and look at him like a predator. You know, what do you mean you're going to have your eye on me? How dare you? And it comes across so bad at this moment. Like, he goes from being like beloved or at least respected in this room to everyone just marking him as like a predator. Don't you think the energy in the room just changed so quickly when Ciara goes, what do you mean you're looking at me? Because the way he says it is like, I'm going to be peeking at you girls. You know, you girls vote for me, I'm going to be looking at you.
Or at least it's a very direct, it's a very aggressive. I'm
going to be looking at you through the windows.
It's a very aggressive, I think it's a very aggressive line.
You don't say.
Wait.
He just... I've got my eye on you. Oh, women, okay, guys, don't say to a woman ever, I've got my eye on you, okay? Hot tip from one man to another. Don't go around saying to women, I've got my eye on you, because you come across as a total creep, okay? Because all the women they almost had them. Derrick and Wes almost had them, but Wes wasn't quite...
He just wasn't deaf enough, and he just buried himself. I think, as Derrick puts it, it's like, well, okay, like he had to like defend Wes. Okay, you know, he can be irritating. I think that's what he said of Wes. You know, it's like, my ally is, you know, can be irritating.
He said he buried himself, and he did. He really effed himself here because they had Rob on the ropes, but instead of coming at them and coming at Rob and using evidence, Wes ends up deflecting, using threats against the women. He was too aggressive, and he buried himself. And to Rob's credit, he got away with another murder. You know, he got away with another murder in plain sight. I don't know how he does it, but apparently all he needs to not do is offend the women. And that's life.
That should be like a topic that should be like, you know, taught in schools, like how to not speak to women.
Oh my gosh. And before we see Wes's exit, we also see Carolyn v. Danielle.
Oh yes,
my goodness.
Yes. So they definitely try to murder each other at the round table.
So Carolyn brings up chaos. Who's bringing up chaos? This is something that I was very interested about, because people have been saying on social media Carolyn is a sure thing to win it.
And we have even said it in our episodes as well.
Yeah. But I really wanted to see how she performed at the round table, because how you speak outside the round table, as I said, is very different to debating at the round table. You need to be clear, concise, be able to debate, hold your nerve, stay calm. So many social skills are required at this round table. You always need to be a politician, but have the charm of every person, you know, of a barman. You need to listen, you need to build alliances, you need to appeal to people without offending others. How was Carolyn going to do, and how do you think Carolyn did at this round table?
She was very emotional. Yeah, I think she was very emotional. So I do kind of like wonder if eventually it might backfire on her. Yeah.
I think she opened well. She said, look, I'm quirky, I'm this, I'm that. And she built up a thing, but she did a couple of mistakes. Okay, she built up evidence against Danielle, but then she ended up using. First of all, people don't like to be used as a witness in your evidence because it makes it look like you're throwing them under the bus. So she brought up Gabby, she brought up Brittany, and said people have come up to me and said your name. Brittany said your name, Danielle, and so on. And then suddenly she had to defend herself against Brittany's evidence and Danielle, with Brittany saying, no, I didn't say your name, I didn't say your name. And so then Carolyn had to say, come on, girl, you did say it. It's better if Carolyn had just come up and said, look, all day I've been hearing my name being used by other people or saying that I've been dropping other people's names, and it's all been coming back to one person. And I think this behavior is very traitorous. No one's looked at her. She's been over emotional. She's been overacting. And I think she didn't go for a shield the other day.
Yeah.
It's Danielle, guys.
Yeah.
We need to look at her. She didn't use evidence, she used emotion.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why I feel like that could be her downfall.
Yes.
Although in her defense as well, like maybe she might not make a very good argument. Like I think when you're very emotional, people who are very emotional do not make great arguments.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, because you kind of like need quite that brain of like logic to present facts logically for the other person to digest. But although that could actually work out for her well, like in the house it has as well, because people are kind of like, well, that's Carolyn. How is she going to be a traitor if she is so emotional?
Yeah, and so I think she tried to have a charge at Danielle, but the weight on Wes was just so strong that ultimately
I think the animosity,
animosity.
that was just raised, by him by his threatening attitude. Yes. Emotion
always speaks louder than logic, and we see that with Carolyn in the way she speaks, and we see that with the round table in the way they vote. So even though she had a lot of animus against Danielle, there wasn't enough build-up, preparation, and work done to really get rid of Danielle, I think, on Carolyn's part. I still think she's a contender to win, but she needs to work on her round table debating in order to go all the way.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's such a skill that we underestimate how to speak at that round table. This is where the game is made or broken, I think. So, as we brought up before, whereas he didn't quite go in with all the conviction he needed, and he gets voted out. So I have here the voting splits. Okay. So Wes. Against Wes, it's Brittany, Trishelle, Ciara, which is, Dylan, Iva, Rob, and Sam. Against Rob, we see Danielle, another traitor.
Yeah.
Wow. Derrick, Gabby, which I'm surprised by, Tom, and Wes. But the main thing that I think is significant is that massively strong block of women. Brittany, Trishelle, Ciara, always... They voted together, and they voted against Wes, and they voted for Rob, essentially.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised that Gabby voted for Rob, but as we've heard, I think the Bambis, like, they don't actually, even though they're a tight group, in this case, there's really only Trishelle and Gabby left, they don't always vote together. What I was maybe surprised was to see Iva and I think Sam voting for Wes, because I think previously in the other episode, I think Sam has mentioned that, well, if Rob isn't murdered tonight, I'm going to be very suspicious of him the next day. Yeah, so...
I was surprised that... And Iva as well, because Iva was in that room with Wes when Wes said who else would vote out a traitor with such conviction other than another traitor. So to see them turn on Wes was... interesting. I think the energy in the room must have clearly swayed against Wes through that debate. A little bit surprised also with Gabby, as you said. So the energy of the room definitely turned against Wes with how he behaved in that thing. What else have we got on the thing? So Wes, let's talk about Wes. Okay, I had a few notes on Wes's game, and we've talked about it throughout the ep, but let's just summarize it. He offended the women. He didn't commit. He distracted Dolores's vote by bringing up Tom. He got on Rob's bad side in the last episode by lying to Rob when Rob said up to him and said, "You've been saying my name," and Wes said, I've been saying your name, but in a good way. Like, wow, to vote out Bob the Traitor was such a ballsy move. Instead of owning it and saying, look, I think, you might have some traitor heat on you, Boston Rob. If you are a traitor, let me work with you. If you're not a traitor, you need to watch yourself.
Yeah.
That's the way you deflect the heat on you. He made a lot of mistakes.
He did.
So ultimately, I think his gameplay though will be remembered by his exit.
Yeah, I think so, which wasn't good. I think just the fact that he was like saying, I'm better than everyone here. I don't care about any of you.
You're all chess pieces.
He did the finger. He said F you to everyone.
Oh.
I think that just, that was terrible.
This was so bad. I couldn't believe he went out like this because his gameplay to this point had been so rational, calm, and likable. I really liked him as a player up until this point, up until this episode. But then for him to go out and say, look, I'm one of the greatest reality players of all time. You're all pieces of S. You all suck. And then he gives everyone the bird. I mean, I don't think I think people were confused at the table with what he was saying. Because he went out and said, I'm a faithful. But I think they were so offended by what he had said, they almost felt like they'd got rid of a traitor.
Yeah.
This was such a traitorous faithful exit that
I would be like, oh well, good riddance.
He literally said, F you guys. So, yeah. Okay, so that brings up the round table. That concludes the round table. Wes goes out. But there is still work to be done. So we see Derrick and Brittany confront each other, and Brittany come up to Derrick and say, "You're a piece of shit. What did she say? She says,
"You're a scumbag."
Yeah, sorry, what did she say? You're a dirty scumbag liar. And then, and instead of building another ally, Derrick says, "Yeah, that's because you could be a traitor." So what happens is Brittany comes up to Derrick and says, "You said you were going to go at Boston Rob before this round table, and then afterwards you did. What's the play here?" And Derrick's like, "Yeah, I didn't tell you about my plan because I suspect you're a traitor." So instead of building another ally, he makes another enemy, Derrick. You know what I mean? Whether she's a traitor or not, that's irrelevant. You know what I mean? In the game of building alliances, if she is a traitor, then you really need her vote. If she isn't, then you also need her vote. Either way, you don't want to offend her by pointing the finger at her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Derrick.
Yeah, I didn't feel like he. Yeah, I think that was. Maybe he was just being frank. Maybe that's just the way he is. But I think, to tell someone that, I think you're a traitor. Yeah. When she could have been a very good ally.
Stupid bad logic.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you really think she's a traitor, then you have to banish her.
Yeah.
But not raise her suspicions.
Exactly. You need to creep, not just run at her. We also see Rob is still in trouble. He needs to talk to Derrick, I think. So, what does Rob need to do out of this? Because the heat is still on him, right? I think he needs to come up to Derrick, right? I think what he needed to do is come up to Derrick and say, "What are you doing, man? Why are you doing this? You put all this heat on me and you and Wes. What are you doing? Are you a traitor? If you get rid of me, you're getting rid of one of the best faithfuls in the game. Why are you doing this?" Right? And then if I was Rob, I would say something like, "Look, now I'm going to get killed and they're going to pin it on you.
Yeah.
Or you're going to get killed and they're going to pin it on me." And I would make this affirmation loudly and clearly in front of everybody.
Yeah, I
think
so.
And that way you're almost setting up the next move, which is to kill Derrick the next day. Because you need to get rid of Derrick now as Rob.
Yeah.
So that's the only way I could see Rob getting out of this mess, and I think he needs to make it. But little did we know that there would be a bigger mess, which is Carolyn versus Danielle in the round table.
Yeah.
And what we see is probably the most, controversial, animus, biggest fight we've seen in the turret to date.
I think so. And I think it's definitely going to get worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is bad. This is bad. So they come up in the turret, right? And there's this long pause, a long silence between Carolyn and Danielle. And it's just straight up, well, it's out there now. Let's just kill each other.
Yeah, or like Carolyn and Rob have actually killed Danielle.
Yeah, Carolyn just says, well, we got to go for you, Danielle. And instead of saying, sorry, Danielle's like, well, I'm going to come at you too. I don't know. Like, I think Danielle could have said or should have said, look, the stuff that why did you come at me? The stuff that you've been hearing is the stuff that I had said earlier. You know, I've not been coming at you. I've not been aggressive. And instead of doing that, instead of defending herself, or at least appeasing Carolyn, Danielle says, well, you did go at Brittany in the turret, which is meant to be sacred conversations.
Yeah, I know. I think to be honest, I think Danielle, I don't think her gameplay has been great.
No.
I think her logic has been quite convoluted, like thinking that she needs to get rid of Carolyn to get a new traitor, to get rid of Rob, you know, and also, well, kind of like spreading untruths as well about the fact that, you know, like just because they think of murdering someone, it's not actually bringing up names.
Yeah, this is not. You make a traitor vow when you enter the turret not to bring up these conversations outside of the turret. She's breaking the game in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, you're not meant to just come out and say what someone has said in the turret. I wouldn't be half surprised if the danger for going for Danielle now for Carolyn and Rob is that she is at that tipping point where she is so unpredictable, where she could break the game and she could say something like, "Yeah, I'm a traitor, but so is Rob," and like she's going to blow something up.
Yeah, I think so.
She's so unpredictable, so emotional. That's the risk.
Yeah.
I think they need to almost ease Danielle out herself. You know what I mean? She needs to, like, I don't know how they're going to do this, honestly, because it's a bomb waiting to go off. Carolyn v Danielle, that seems to be coming up episode 7. We didn't get much in the teaser, but I think that's inevitable. That's the war coming up.
I think so. And like, you know, I think the next episode, it's going to be quite a bit of a bombshell. It seems like it.
Yeah.
There's actually a new challenge that that has shown up in the US Traitors with all these like candles, I think like in a church, that we actually haven't seen in the UK version. So I'm excited to see what that's going to be. Yeah.
We're going to wrap it up there?
Yeah, Teresa? We do. Okay, so guys, this is a wrap up and thank you so much for listening to the show. This is the Recreate Reality podcast by Michael and Teresa. And you can find us on Instagram, on TikTok as well, on WRECK.CREATE, where you can watch funny short clips of what we've talked about. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the pod. We're very, very grateful for any love you can give. We'll be back shortly with the next episode, still in Singapore, so stay tuned.
See you guys.